Hello and welcome to the 3D Blu-ray bunker. This is where I look exclusively at films on 3D Blu-ray, not to do a movie review, but to focus almost entirely on the 3D, with just a short word at the end about the film itself. And this time I'm looking at Jumanji: The Next Level. It's got an aspect ratio of 2.39 to 1, and it was post-converted into 3D. So maybe unsurprisingly, I think this film's 3D has quite a lot in common with the way it was used in the first film. So much so that several of the shots here look like they could have been lifted straight from Welcome to the Jungle, and the 3D works as well here as it did in the first film. And they also presumably appreciated that the sequence of the transfer into the game was an effective shot in 3D in the first film, so they do the same thing again here. And I think it maybe looks even a little bit better than before. And that first moment of being thrust into the jungle leaves is really effective, even if it is very brief. Another thing that the first film did, although I think it was done better in that film than in this one, is the view down from the top of a cliff. This is still really nice 3D, but the first film maybe had several more shots like this, so perhaps a bit more chance to shine with it. I think there's a whole load of very good 3D staging in the film, so the production design is done very well for 3D, whether intentionally or not. It's quite possible, I guess, that this is just the result of being a big budget film, and that when there's money available you're more likely to have a set that's heavily dressed, so it lends itself to offering up good three-dimensional composition, but it does feel like there's been a good effort to fill 3D space, like with the pillars in the house and the frequent placement of things in the foreground. Another thing that's done quite a lot with the framing is the use of doorways. There are quite a few sequences with the characters in doorways, and with another doorway beyond them in the background, often with the camera moving forwards into them or backwards out of them, so these all give a good sense of depth and atmosphere. Maybe the one that works best is in this moment. This is the kind of shot that 2D films use a lot. A couple of characters framed beyond a doorway, away in the distance, as they discuss a delicate matter, and it's one of those shots where the 3D really takes what the 2D shot is naturally doing, and it ramps it up significantly. It's really effective, dramatic 3D, I think. And there are other fairly subtle moments of drama-enhancing 3D, like when Alex Wolff's character is revealing something personal to his grandfather. This view of him on the bed feels like it has slightly dialed up 3D, so it gives him and the bed that kind of floating look, which definitely adds to the moment. Or when he retrieves the Jumanji box from where it's been hidden away, and the 3D is doing a good job of emphasising that this thing's been put into a deep recess. And even better is when Danny Glover and Danny DeVito are sitting opposite each other at a table in this scene. Not this shot, which is perfectly fine 3D, but the over-the-shoulder views from each of them across the length of the table to each other. So this scene is all about the distance that's grown between them, and the 3D does a great job of making the physical space that's between them in the shot feel all the more tangible. I really like these shots. They're clearly a drama-enhancing use of 3D in low-key scenes within a big-budget adventure romp. That's great stuff. When it comes to the type of 3D that you might expect from a big-budget adventure romp, and the type of 3D that a lot of people love, that's to say, moments of pop-out, this film is going to be a disappointment. I don't think I'd say that there are any pop-out moments that are much good. The most overt one is probably the line tethering this airship. This does come a good way out of the screen, but I kind of dislike this shot, and not just because the rope is breaking the frame, but because it actually feels quite out of place to me. That's to say, that doesn't really feel like there's any reason that the rope should be protruding from the screen. It feels like it ought to be stretching deep into the screen towards the distant airship. It's a rope that's going away from us rather than coming towards us, so it's not something that I think has any reason to pop out of the screen. Now, this scene does come towards the end of the film, and it's possible that they thought that because there weren't really any obvious pop-out moments, that they had to throw one in, and this would have been a very quick and easy fix to shove into negative parallax, but it's one that I definitely file under egregious gimmicky 3D. And there's another bit where some branches and leaves pop out of the screen, but this also feels a bit wrong to me, as the subject of focus here is the large fruit that's hanging there, so you'd have thought that that should be the thing thrust into obvious 3D space, but it isn't, and I guess that the shot just wasn't framed in a way to make that possible. There are several other times where you feel that more could have been done in negative space, like these guys are naturally funny-looking birds, and I think it was in the film The Legend of Tarzan where they had one of them poke its head a nice way out of the screen, but here it only emerges a very tiny and frankly disappointing way out in front. I'd say it's exactly the same situation with the camels. They're also naturally comedic-looking animals, and I think we'd welcome one of them thrusting its funny old expression a good way towards us. But again, if they emerge from the screen at all, it's only ever done in a very mild way. And not only do they not shove comical creatures a decent way out of the screen, but maybe even more unrewardingly, they also don't push a scary guy out either. So this fella's teeth are placed at about screen level in another shot that looked to me like it was crying out for some more powerful and invasive 3D. There's a moment where a lack of pop-out might come as a bit of a relief rather than a surprise, and that's these stone serpents, which immediately reminded me of the one in Jaws 3 that's pushed so far out of the screen that it becomes pretty much impossible to resolve in 3D, and it just ends up straining your eyes. So maybe sometimes a lack of pop should be taken as a blessing. But even so, it does feel like the film could have done a lot more to satisfy pop-out fans. There are some falling rocks that come towards us, but very briefly and not overly obviously out of the screen. In fact, by far the better 3D view in this sequence is the reverse shot of everything falling down and into the distance, which is another lovely bit of 3D. There's quite a lot of snow in the film, and this is used several times very nicely in 3D. It's maybe not what I'd class as pop-out as such, but quite a bit of snow does float around in front of the screen, and it all has plenty of depth to it, so it's a great piece of 3D weather, and I assume it's all digital as it looks very good in 3D, and maybe it's at its best in slow motion in great shots like this. I reckon the conversion team must have been happy that the film wasn't all set in a jungle this time around, so there are some trees like these which are way easier to throw into 3D space than all of that dense foliage, so this is a nice view. There are a few times when there isn't much going on across the Z-axis, like here it's really just the lens flare that's occupying 3D space, but the entire view is pushed away behind the screen, and I always think that shots like this still look a bit better in 3D than in 2D, because you're looking clearly beyond the frame of the screen, but this kind of thing is almost equally effective if the shot itself is entirely 2D but pushed into positive parallax, so it's one of those where the 3D does make it look nice, even if it doesn't really contain much in the way of depth information other than the distance of the empty space. Sometimes long shots can work well, although I personally think that this view would have been much better if the camera had been just a little bit lower to the ground, and then you'd have had that great effect of the ground stretching back to the riders, and that could have sold the sense of space and distance a lot better. As it is though, this is another one of those views when most of the 3D effect is just simply the empty space from the screen's frame to the view beyond it. This shot is a very nice example of exactly the type of view I mean when the camera's low to the ground, and this is excellent because the 3D is doing a superb job here of conveying the sense of distance to the door in a scene where that's a crucial factor. The first time I watched this film I saw it in 2D, and I expect that you're probably like me in that when you see a 3D film in 2D you find yourself wondering how good certain moments will look in 3D. Like for example, when I first watched Godzilla vs Kong, I saw it flat and imagined how good that floating rock sequence could look in 3D if they did it well, and it turned out they did it even better than I'd expected, exceeding my already fairly strong expectations. So in this film there were a couple of specific scenes that really stood out in terms of hoping they'd look as good in 3D as I imagined. Firstly, the minor one, it's this field of crops, and if you've ever dabbled in 3D photography you may well have taken a photo of a crop field, as they can look spectacular with an almost infinite number of plants sitting in an almost infinite amount of 3D space. The native 3D movie Julia X has got a superb example of this. So this one looked promising in that regard, and also because it immediately looks like the crops here are all digital, so there's another reason to hope that it could look great. But sadly though, this one was a real letdown. There's certainly some depth in the shot, but it was nothing close to the stunning piece of 3D I hoped that it would be. It's okay, but this could have been totally dazzling like Kong's rock field. As it is though, I don't expect the 3D here was of any real interest to anyone, so that was a bit of a shame. If you've seen the film, I'm sure you'll know what the other scene that I have in mind is, and it's really the film's standout set piece, a great fun sequence that's really well done, but the 3D varies in it between very good and kind of unimpressive. So obviously it's the sequence with the hanging rope bridges. There are dozens of these things, all hanging down in views where good strong 3D could look absolutely extraordinary, but in all of these long shots it never manages to look as incredible as I think it could, but rather it just looks good, and good is obviously good, but it's not great, and that's a shame, as I think that some of these views really could have been great. However, some of the shots within the sequence are a lot better than others, usually looking very nice when there's one bridge in the foreground like this, and actually seeing it here in 2D makes me appreciate even more how effective the 3D was at isolating the bridge and making it stand out from the background, where without 3D, the two of them sort of blend into each other like you can see here. And there is a great 3D moment when we zoom across a bridge towards one of the attackers in this excellent shot. I think this sequence is at its absolute best in the views looking down on the characters on various bridges, and this is excellent at selling the height and the danger and all of that. So these top-down views on the bridge sequence are all fantastic. For me though, I just thought it was a bit of a shame that some of those long shots here weren't the 3D eye candy that I think they could have been. So the film has several different views looking down from a height, which all work very well in 3D, but maybe my favourite is this moment when they're closing in on something important down there, and the 3D here is great, making it look all the more distant, all the more difficult, and basically all the more fun. Overall then, loads of very enjoyable 3D in this film, and some surprisingly subtle bits of effective 3D too. It's also worth a quick mention about this Blu-ray's release. So by the middle of 2021, we'd got to a point where there were an increasingly large number of modern era films that had been given a 3D cinema release, but that the studios hadn't seen fit to release a copy on disc, and it had started to look like Jumanji The Next Level was going to be an addition to that list of shame, when seemingly out of the blue in stepped an outfit that many of us had never heard of, the Australian-based Random Space Media, who licensed this from Sony and put it out on 3D Blu-ray. I know that collectors of physical media have been used to boutique labels licensing classic films for disc release, but this one's maybe a bit different because it's a very recent big hit film, and of course because it's 3D. So Random Space Media has become a real 3D saviour here, and if you don't already have this release, I'd urge anyone to buy it from them, not just because it's a fun film with some really good 3D, but because there's optimism that there could be more of the same from our new Australian friends. So just a very quick word about the film itself. Like I say, it's a fun film, it's just as entertaining as the previous one I think. It's basically more of the same of course, but with sufficient twists and differences to make it a completely valid and worthwhile sequel. It reminded me in a funny kind of way of Back to the Future 2, in the way that film used time travel in a much more inventive and interesting way than the first film had, and The Next Level does the same thing with its whole body swap avatar premise. One of the reasons I think this one works even better than the first is because as good as the four young actors were in the first film, and it was fine to see their characters being channeled by the actors playing their in-game avatars, but this time around, Dwayne Johnson, Jack Black, Kevin Hart and Karen Gillan are not only mixing up who they are, but some of them are also channeling Danny DeVito and Danny Glover, who are actors that we've been familiar with for decades, so it just feels to me like there's even more fun to be had with the whole setup this time around. I enjoyed it a lot, and with its credit sequence setting up another sequel, I'm hoping that that one gets the 3D treatment also. So I hope you found this in some way useful, and if so, I hope you'll join me again soon for a look at another 3D Blu-ray. Until then, thanks for looking in on this one, cheers for now, bye bye.